assuming is that the seat
Yes.
right there?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon. We're in several spots. So the video you see over there, that is the public Zoom.
Okay.
That might be distracting, but we apologize. There are some members of the commission who are hearing by Zoom as well, so there's a separate Zoom for them.
Okay.
And they're on there, so they might ask you questions from there.
Okay.
And then you've got us in the audience or in the room. So take a moment and introduce yourself and tell us why you want to be a circuit court judge.
I want to thank everybody for the time that you are spending in the busy time. That's something that's appreciated, especially reviewing the application. That is quite lengthy on each one of the applicants. And so I do want to take some time and appreciate that. Also, before I start, I want to just go ahead and start by my condolences to Judge Henderson's family. We know that we're here because of its untimely passing, and I knew him as a prosecutor and him as a judge, and that's something that I wanted to acknowledge. And also yesterday, I also heard that Judge Pete Miller from Putnam County had passed, unfortunately, after being in hospice. Another loss to the legal community. I mean, he's been retired for a while. I have been wanting to be a judge for quite some time now. My first application is in 2005, and I have been a prosecutor for approximately now close to 28 years. And I think as a continuation of the public service, this is something that I've always wanted to do. I've had not only applied numerous times, but also I ran unsuccessfully for a circuit decision. There was a very short period of campaigning because it was the last decision in the circuit, but I was able to make it out of the primary with only about 7 weeks of campaigning. Unfortunately, I lost in the main election against a much more seasoned Judge Wolf, who also passed a few years ago. The comment that I kept getting during that time, when I was 36 years old, is I needed more gray hair. Well, I have no gray hair. And please,
Mr. Bustamante, I hate to interrupt you. I'm getting texts from the commissioners. Can you actually move that seat?
Absolutely.
Just come forward. They're having a hard time hearing you. There you go. Perfect.
Ms. Matthews, how are you? I haven't seen her in a while.
You turned gray while I wasn't looking.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no, that's quite all right.
So interesting, can you tell me a little bit about the story of how your family came to the United States? I'm always interested in understanding how people, become lawyers and what drove you to that profession.
My father was a professor in mathematics, and he was able to get an opportunity to teach down in a university down in South Florida. I was 9 years old, and within 3 months they told us, we were moving to the U.S. And that was it. I started, I finished, I think it's the 4th grade in Venezuela, where I grew up. And 3 months later, I was in a classroom, a whole bunch of new kids, they all spoke a different language. And so that was kind of like they threw you immersed. That was in St. Petersburg, in fact. And so there were not too many people who spoke Spanish at that. You just kind of have to learn. And my father then went on to teach, and we stayed since then. So I have been in this country since 1979.
How has that shaped your character?
One of the things that you learn, especially in this particular country, is the benefits that it affords you. You can get a really good public education, which I did. You can do just about anything that you can. You can make a lot of money if you want to. You can give back to the society. The legal system is something that is enviable. If you go to a lot of the other countries in South America, you see that the legal system really is not functioning. It functions only for the people who are wealthy. And the Supreme Courts and the courts are ones that are essentially puppets of the government. When you see how things operate here, you get a sense of pride. This is the kind of system that should be emulated throughout the world. It is not perfect. 28 years of practice, you need to know that. But it is something that we all should be very proud of.
What about,
Mr. Bustamante, it's Chris Green. Good afternoon.
Mr. Green,
You may have touched on this, but I was unable to hear it. Help me. When you live in Gainesville, you have a home in Oregon by the Sea. You ran for judge in St. John's County, and then you applied to the JMCs and the Fourth Circuit, the Seventh Circuit case. So where's home? Where's your home?
oh, the home has actually the Seventh Circuit, and I'll tell you that. I've had a home in the Seventh Circuit since 1993. I started my law practice as a prosecutor in Daytona. Then 4 years later, I got a job with the statewide prosecutor's office, but I moved over to St. Johns County. And I lived there for 19 years at that home. Unfortunately, my mother-in-law, who lived with us for all those years and helped take care of our children, she passed away. At that point, it was too painful for my children to stay at that home, so we moved to Clay County just to basically start fresh. We still had a home in Ormond by the Sea. That's where I have a home. We've had a home there since 2010. My weekends are spent in Ormond by the Sea. The reason that I moved, and only moved recently, to Gainesville is because my wife has had some health issues, and my daughter now is enrolled in Santa Fe State College. Gainesville is just a place which is convenient at this point, but my home here is in the Seventh Circuit, and I've lived in the Seventh Circuit since 1993.
tell me a little
Thank
bit.
you.
I did not know until I read your application that you had a period of time where you had a solo practice, where you had your own office in 14 and 15.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the type of cases you handled there that were not related to criminal law.
Yeah, I was actually sole practitioner for about 4 or 5 months. I left the Seventh Circuit, and the reason I left the Seventh Circuit, and I know that may be the question that some of you all had, is I was the executive director of the Seventh Circuit. I was not really an attorney. What I was essentially was an administrator, I was an accountant, and I wanted to go back to practice being a trial attorney. So when I left, I was able to get some criminal law cases. I also was able to get some malpractice cases. We had one particular case in which we had my client was mistreated at a nursing home. 3 or 4 months into that practice, I ran into at a social function with Mr. Servan, who was the state attorney of the 8th Circuit. And he told me, "What do you miss about prosecution?" I said, "I wanted to be a prosecutor, I want to be in the courtroom." And he tells me, "What if I give you an offer?" I said, "Well, currently I live in St. Johns County. The closest one is going to be Bradford County, and I'll probably be a supervisor." And he says, "Okay, don't you have a supervisor there? We'll make it work." And so 2 months later, I was now the division chief in Bradford County, where I've been since then. So during the 3 or 4 months that I did my practice, I've actually made some money, which is great. But my heart was in public service. My wife is a successful family law attorney. Luckily, I don't have to worry about those kinds of things, and so she says, "If you want to go back to the public service, go right ahead." So I took a huge pay cut and went back to prosecution, and I've been happy also ever since then. I hope that answers your question.
Mr. Bustamante, I had the pleasure of speaking with Captain Clark.
Oh, yes,
about
wonderful
you,
lady,
the
yes.
case, that I will tell you, it was a very emotional conversation, talking about how you treated her and her family and interacted with them. I was wondering if you could talk about that case and your interaction with Captain's family.
Yes, that was a governor's assignment from Clay County, and her son, who has Down syndrome, is 17 years old, was killed in a traffic accident in which the father was responsible. She had been divorced from the father, and 17 years old, he was the light of her life. And so I had to walk her through the process of that prosecution. Lasted maybe about a year and a half, very emotional. We were able to get a conviction. We went to trial on that one. It's a complicated case. You have several experts. But one of the things that you always remember is that there is a human. There are humans behind that. It is easy sometimes to forget that this process, whether it's the victim's family, all of us are human, and you have to spend time talking to them and making them feel that this judicial system works. I'm sorry, there's something, has something happened to the connection. And so I hope that they are
I think it's reloaded.
reloaded.
Yeah, that's the public internet, it's iffy.
Can you all hear us on the, everybody on Zoom from our people, can you hear us now?
I don't know if they can. Can you hear?
He's muted,
Oh.
Andrew.
Okay.
No.
Oh,
He's muted. All right, hold on. Now, can everybody hear us?
everybody?
Everybody on, all the commissioners, can you hear us?
Better.
So I think that, to just answer your question, is that as attorneys, we should never forget about the human toll of the judicial system. When people come in front of you, it is usually one of the worst situations in their life, and you need to never forget that, regardless of how many cases you got. Even if you're a criminal defendant, or even if you're a plaintiff or a defendant in some type of civil litigation, this is very important for them. This is a system in which, if you treat them correctly, if you treat them justly, that we all are a better society for them.
A couple questions for you, Mr. Bustamante. One, if you are selected by the governor and you become a circuit court judge, would you have any issue imposing the death penalty if warranted under the law?
No. I've had 3 death penalty cases that I tried in the last 6 years. 2 of them have imposed death.
Yeah, that was messing up too. We don't have an internet. We've had problems during COVID with the courthouses and their internet.
Where was that fellow? Maybe you think they'd let us sign in, or can you sign us into the state attorney Wi-Fi?
We use the clerk.
Can we get on the non-public one, you think?
Probably not. I think.
You have to
Have
ask
some kind of security.
Judge Jolly, because she's one that's kind of in charge here. She came out when I was here.
This thing's not even connecting though.
If she's doing Zoom stuff, she must.
Let me just do
What is it? She
it.
must
What's
know.
the, I can do it on my
She came
computer.
here, and
This is my work
we spoke
computer, so
for a
this
while
will work.
or a little while
Yeah,
ago.
that's
She
okay.
said, "Well, whatever we need.
I'll forward you the link.
Don't apologize.
No reflection of it.
That
The thing
thing looks
is,
like it's screwed up too.
I took the whole afternoon off, and so I'm away.
So did I.
You broke our Zoom.
Do you have her?
I just forwarded it to you, but I've got it right here.
I promise when I leave here, I'm not going to cry. That way, it's like I don't do it in the first.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
All right, I'm switching. This is my work laptop. Hopefully this works better. I'm going to shut the other one. I mean, I don't know what that means, but I mean,
So, while I've got your attention, I first of all want to say hello. It's nice to see you again. And I wanted to ask you, when you were a prosecutor here working in the state attorney's office, what counties did you have occasion to have connection with? And have you maintained any connection, personal or professional, since you left the Seventh Circuit?
I actually was lucky enough to try cases in all of the 4 counties. I've had trials, in fact, in this courtroom right here, but also in the land. I have tried cases over in Palatka, I've tried cases in Bunnell, and I've tried cases in St. Johns County. Connections, a lot of my friends, Joe Boatwright is a personal friend of mine, and we get in contact with each other. I keep contact with people from the state attorney's office, with the Shannon Peters or Jason Lewis. And people from the community. This is a place that I've grown up as a lawyer. I have gone to other places throughout the state. I mean, I have practiced in Jacksonville when I was in the statewide prosecutor's office. I have tried cases in Marion County. I've tried cases in Jacksonville. I've tried cases, down in other areas of the state. And what I find is that I keep coming back here. The legal community here is it is open. It's open, and it's just the people are great. Other places, I like Gainesville. I like Lake City, where I practice too. This is just home.
Thank you.
Yeah. And please say hi to Tom for me.
Will do.
You've run some elections and lost them. What have you learned from that? What do you think you did wrong, that you would change if you had that? Because it's no secret, a lot of people who are getting appointed are now getting challengers.
I can tell you that the first one that I ran, which is essentially 2 elections, I had a very short period of time. And during those 7 weeks, I had to convince the voters from the 7th Circuit that a unknown prosecutor who looked like he was 12 to vote for him. And in 7 weeks, I knocked on doors, went everywhere that I needed to, and I was able to get enough to get into the runoff. Now, on the second one, I tried just as hard, but I guess, me looking young was an issue. And so what I've learned from those is that I know exactly how to run a campaign for the circuit. Now that I have more gray hair and have a lot more experience and have more contacts, I'm pretty sure that if somebody's going to run against me, they're going to know exactly what I'm made of, and I will go ahead and fight every step of the way to win that election. I hope that answers the question.
Does anyone else have any questions? Members on the laptop, any questions? Okay, thank you, Mr. Bustamante. I'm going to look at your number, but is it cellular number that you listed on your application?
That is my number, yes.
Okay, great. All right, well, thank you.
Thank
Sorry
you so
about the
much.
technical.
Don't worry. And thank you for spending time talking to me. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.